I would like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6 p.m. The following board members in attendance: Catherine Sells, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Allison Lasan, Sheila Taylor, Michelle Akateb, Dr. Stacy Barker, and Jenny Prosnick. I've asked board member Allison Lasan to lead us in prayer.
Dear Lord, thank you so much for all the wonderful blessings that you give to us. We're so grateful for all of our wonderful teachers and staff that teach our students every day. Please keep them all safe. Please put a hedge of protection around them. Please help this group here today listen and make great decisions for our district. And just please be with us as we finish out the school year. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. Dr. Barker, would you read our mission and vision statements?
Yes, Madam President. Our mission statement is engaging and inspiring learners and leaders, and our vision statement is all students are confident, equipped with the knowledge and skills to thrive and adapt for their future.
Thank you, Dr. Barker. Next on the agenda are public comments, and we have none tonight. So we will move on. 2G, discussion items. First up is the superintendent report. Dr. Rupp.
All right. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'm going to do just a brief legislative update. I'll have this one this evening, and I'm going to have another one as well on Monday night, just to keep up with all the things that are going on in this 89th legislative session. So let's take a look at just real quickly about what we know on the education committees. So we have not yet heard who will be serving on the House Education Committee. We continue to watch to see when that gets determined, and we will update our legislative website because we like for our community to know who are on these committees. The Senate Education Committee does have significant Denton County representation with both Senator Parker and Senator Hagan-Boo, I think, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And what we do know is that budget bills have been introduced in both the House and the Senate. So I wanted to just recap a little bit of HB 1 and SB 1, just the specific pieces that are related to education. What we see is an increase of the guaranteed yield on golden pennies addressed in both of those bills, and you can see that they match exactly. Then property tax relief is a portion of both of these bills. The numbers, again, match exactly, $3.5 billion. Of course, we know that's contingent on legislation come up with legislation in the session that would appropriate those funds. The difference is the Senate has already kind of prescribed how might they go about addressing that. They want to see the homestead exemption increased, and they want to see more money put in business tax cuts as well. For education savings accounts, they both agree, and of course this has been in the news quite a bit already, that $1 billion is to go towards ESAs. And then school finance changes in general, what we see again is a pretty strong agreement on the amount. So 4.85, that would be contingent on legislation to utilize that money passed during the session. We see $750 million from the Senate for changes to the teacher incentive allotment, and $4.1 billion specifically for educator pay raises. So they may not be completely the same right now on how they want to go about allocating those funds or see legislation to allocate those funds, but the dollar amount is very similar. And then we see them agreeing on school safety at $200 million per year of the biennium. So very interesting that these amounts this early on match almost exactly. So what about the basic allotment? Because we don't see that really yet addressed in any legislation, and we didn't see it specified in the school finance changes of House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1. And TASBO came up with some information they shared at TASA Midwinter that I was just at. A $300 increase to the basic allotment, they estimate would cost the legislature $4 billion. Okay, just to give you kind of a ballpark. If $4 billion is what we see allocated or referenced in HB 1 and Senate Bill 1. We see that if there was a $100 increase from current law, that would cost the legislature $1.5 billion. A $200 increase would cost $2.9 billion. A $300 increase, $4.4. And if they were to increase it by $1,340, which is that amount talked about by Fund Schools First, that would cost $19.8 billion. So as we're thinking about possibly what might we see the legislature be able to do, I just thought it was important for you all to know the cost of those basic allotment changes. So Senate Bill 2 definitely was in the news a lot last week. The Senate Education Committee did pass this to the full Senate. It passed out of committee by a vote of 9-2. And some principles there that you see about Senate Bill 2, it allows every Texas student to apply for an education savings account. Whether they're in public school, private school, or homeschool, they would be eligible to apply. If the applications do not exceed the program's capacity, again, that's that $1 billion, then all students would be accepted. If they have more applications than what they have money to distribute, then it goes to a lottery system. So 80% of the positions would be filled by lottery by those students who previously attended public school and are either from low-income households or have a disability. There was a lot of talk in that Senate Education Committee about the poverty threshold that was being used in this bill and whether that was too high and should be considered, the threshold should be lower. Each participating student would receive at least $2,000. If a family elects to enroll their student in a private school, the student would receive $10,000, $11,500 if they have a disability. That actually, first sentence should say the $2,000 is for homeschoolers. So if you want to homeschool, $2,000, private school tuition, $10,000, $11,500 if you have a disability. We'll keep you posted. Again, that may be part of my update a week from now, is what gets heard on the Senate floor and how that turns out. The cost of the program, again, is expected to be $1 billion in 2027. But interestingly, what we saw, and I think it was TASBO that put this together as well, it would escalate to $3.2 billion in 2028, $3.8 billion in 2029, and $4.6 billion in 2030. No House bill has yet been filed on education savings accounts similar to Senate Bill 2. The other thing that I thought was interesting in a session I attended at TASA Midwinter from TASBO was the talk about declining enrollment, because there is a lot of conversation right now about attendance-based funding versus enrollment-based funding. And so this graph, it's a little small, and I apologize for that, but the majority of districts are on the other side of where enrollment is declining. So you can see there that the count of districts by enrollment changes, there are 10% of districts that are having enrollment declines, 10 to 20% are declining by the 100 line mark there, 100,000s, and then greater than 20%. So you see a lot of districts. In fact, what TASBO estimates is more than half of the districts in Texas are facing declining enrollment. Then you see the challenge of attendance-based funding, and again, this was a graph produced by TASBO. The top line there is the enrollment trends in the state of Texas. The orange line is the state-funded ADA amount. And since 2017, while enrollment is up about 172,000, ADA is only up 35,000. Think about that for just a second, the difference in that funding, right? But you can see the gap when you think about attendance-based funding versus enrollment-based funding. There's quite a gap there between the enrollment in Texas public schools versus the attendance in Texas public schools. And then on top of that, if you are a school district dealing with declining enrollment, and as we said, more than half the districts are, that gap matters even more for you, that difference between attendance and enrollment-based funding. And, the other thing this headline indicates is that attendance rates have improved, but really are not back yet to pre-pandemic levels, which impacts school district funding as well. Governor Abbott last night delivered his State of the State address. He declared 7 emergency items. You see those on the screen. School choice and teacher pay were 2 of those things. That means that the legislature could pass bills related to that within the first 60 days of the session. And then one other thing I thought I would update on tonight. It was about this time last year that TEA released their annual report for 2023. And it was in their annual report that I got the circle graph that I've traveled around the community sharing. And the circle graph is not part of the annual report this year for 2024. So I thought I'd just share with you a couple of the graphs that are in there. This graph is in the report. They're saying that the per student funding is up 48% since 2011 to $15,503 on average per student. Scott and I were talking about this graph, and the interesting part, if you notice the blue at the bottom and you go across, that's actually the total statewide state funding. And you can see that those blue bars actually trend downward. The little hash mark portions above, that's actually the total statewide revenue from recapture, and recapture actually is increasing as you go across the graph, right? And then you see the gray portion. Well, the gray portion is local INS funding, which again, INS funding really contributing to that overall dollar amount. But you can see the increase in INS funding since 2011 as well. And then the light gray is the total statewide local M&O funding. That would be your Tier 2, golden and copper pennies. So you can kind of trace that trend in the lighter gray color there. And then green is your total statewide federal funding. Now contrast this with the LBB's graph. We've talked about this one before. The LBB actually accounts for inflation on the impact of public school funding. But the Texas Education Agency didn't account for inflation in their annual report. All right? So what they've done this year, instead of having a circle graph, and you can barely see my little red circles on there, but they have a page where it simply has one column, and that is meant to represent your M&O funding. And what it says at the top there is schools receive, on average, $10,800 in total M&O funding. That includes your golden and copper pennies, that Tier 2, all right, is how they're getting to that $10,000. But they say that your Tier 1 and total M&O funding, you can have attendance-based measures contribute to that. That's your regular program attendance. You can have enrollment-based measures, which is things like dyslexia, gifted and talented. But gifted and talented isn't really enrollment-based funding because we're capped on how many students we can get gifted and talented funding for. You have district-based, which is small, mid-size allotment, fast growth, safety and security. You have spending-based, which is transportation and TRS on behalf. So unfortunately, this $10,000 figure still includes TRS on behalf, which we know we cannot spend a dollar of. The portion on the right that I've circled is what I want to point out as well specifically. They're now calling that category district action dependent. So there's quite a lengthy list of items that they say are district action dependent, which would be Senate Bill 1882, that could be partnering with charter schools, for example. That could be your non-enrolled UIL participation, homeschool students in UIL, or it could be high-quality instructional materials. Could raise your dollar amount to $10,000. So a lot more to dig into with this choice of representation, but it still includes some things that I think are a bit of a problem when it comes to inflating that M&O amount. If you click on the little 14, that is the footnote on how they calculated this column graph, you will see that it takes you to this, and it says, here's how they got to the dollar figure, and then they say specifically, again, they're including TRS on behalf amounts in that $10,000. And that's really all my presentation tonight. Happy to take any questions on any of that content.
Ms. Lasan?
Thank you for that. I
Yes.
knew that you would help us, dig into that Senate, the bill that just came out of the Senate Education. My question, and you probably don't know the answer to this, but, a few years ago, they sort of made us do teacher raises, right? But they only gave us, not enough, not nearly enough, right, to do teacher raises. I mean, have you heard anything about how they propose to do? I mean, because I guess what I'm saying is, in theory, that's fantastic, but, how are we thinking that's going to happen?
This is a great question. I have not specifically heard what might be the main impetus for the teacher pay. We will be watching that closely. There's a lot of bills filed around education right now, but the lower bills, as we all know, are really the priority bills, and I have not yet seen teacher pay in a lower bill number, if that makes sense. So we'll just have to see what they come up with for that. But yes, you're right. I mean, when they passed the big increase of the basic allotment in 2019, and of course it mandated that 30% of that had to be spent on educator pay, we actually did not get what the LBB had estimated our district would get. And as a board, y'all committed to having fidelity to what the intent of that increase the basic allotment was, but we didn't really get enough to do what was advertised that would happen.
My understanding is that either today or tomorrow, the reps were supposed to get the legislator reps.
Dr. Barker?
Thank you, Madam President. Have you heard of any distinction between the money that was not allocated by legislative action in the last session versus new money to be allocated via legislation in this session? Has there been any talk around that, or have you heard anything?
I have not heard anything on that. I think we, would like some greater clarity. I think we heard from some of our local officials before they went down there that they thought that money should still be allocated like it was meant to be, and in addition to, but I haven't seen anything come across about that specifically.
Dr. Bonner?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. Lori, on the projections out to 2030, what are those based on? Where those numbers come from?
Yeah, I'll have to go back and do a little bit of homework on that one, on how they built out that escalation. But I think what's happening is they're saying if you're taking enough for $1 billion in 2027, then they're taking account a little bit into inflation, and you're rolling those people, and then you're expanding.
Certainly, yeah. That's just my little old simple math down here. That's 460,000 kids at $4.6 billion. So I'm just wondering where that came from.
Yeah, I can do a little bit of homework on that.
Don't knock yourself out on it, because it may be a guess, frankly.
And it may have come from, I'm trying to remember this now, Dr. Bonner, but it may have been in the LBB fiscal analysis of the bill, and I'll go back and take a look at that, where they're kind of estimating on out.
And to Allison's point on requiring certain monies to be put forward for teacher salary increases, right, for the biennium, if they do $300 at 7,000 kiddos, something like that, that's only $14 million. And so we'd eat up the majority of that with a 3% raise.
Right.
So I just want to get that math out there. It may not be right, but I just want to get it out there that unless they do something markedly different than what we're seeing here, there's not going to be a lot of relief. So just need to bring that to the table. So thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Ms. Sells?
I tried to watch some of the hearings that were going on, but of course I had other things to do. But I kept waiting to see if there was going to be any type of study. I've asked for years for a study to be done on charter schools and the fidelity of charter schools and where we started with them and where they are now and their impact on public schools. But one of the things that I have tried to gather a little bit of information on, but I think it's very, I think it would be very prudent of the legislative to do some kind of benchmark of what the private school tuitions are now, and to try to put some parameters around future increases that they may propose based on what they see of students coming into their realm, for better word. I think that if all we see are increases in private school tuitions on those students that will be then going into it, it has been not money well spent when, like Dr. Bonner said, there really isn't a relief coming if we are actually going to take care of our staff the way we did not this year. And the other thing is, was there any talk on that 10,000, 2,000, whatever? I guess everybody who homeschooled they're in attendance every day, hopefully. But in that 10,000 and 11,500, is there any reductions based on their attendances, and how and who would do that monitoring of this program overview? So if you could talk a little bit about that.
You know, one of the comments I did see from a different source, and I can't remember where this was from because there's been so much out there about Senate Bill 2 since last week, was that it doesn't have an attendance component. You get the full 10,000 whether you go every day to the private school or whether you go 10 days to the private school possibly. And homeschool, again, you would get the full 2,000, it seems, at least from how the Senate bill's drafted. And does that make another case for, you know, what is it important to be enrollment-based or attendance-based? If the money is going to exist just based on the fact you are there and you're enrolling in a program, then that's the way it should be for public schools too. Dr. Fitzhugh had this point this morning. We were talking about this at leadership team, and she said something she had read about Senate Bill 2 is that it includes 3% for administrative cost.
That's just for-
Yes, yeah. And that if they ultimately, you know, we know that administrative cost is something that we get questioned about a lot, and they are going to have to create a whole entire method of administering this program and add staff to do it, and, you know, that's just another part of cost as well.
So I'd also challenge them to look, and we already see some of this happening, but, you know, when you give out that kind of money and there's no incentive of completing what their intention is, we as a public school system will, and rightfully so, will always take back those children. And I think that any private school that I'm aware of has attendance requirements. And so I'm just going to say, better be ready. So that's all I know.
I know one of the things I shared with you all in my update was that there are many states that have provisions for declining enrollment school districts. Some of those states it was enacted when school choice came into about because students might move back and forth, and there's a cost to that, and it's basically like a hold harmless to provide some declining enrollment, because while they go away for a time, they may come back, and then you've got to be sure that you're still equipped to provide. There was some talk, I believe, in the last in the 88th about a hold harmless provision for public schools if a school choice bill had passed, but I haven't seen any of that in Senate Bill 2.
I'm going to add on to the administrative cost. So it's 3% to the comptroller, and then it's 5% of that money to TEA to administer it. Plus, they will also get a marketing budget so that they can market this program. So those are just some of the other things that are in the bill that the Senate Education Committee passed out. I think what I find disappointing is how the legislature and TEA would like to hold us accountable, as they should. We are charged with educating children, and I feel we should be held accountable to ensure that we are doing that. But there does not seem to be any accountability in SB2 at all for any of the educational institutions that taxpayer dollars would be going to. And I find that to be, some cognitive dissonance, if you will. We used to have one system of public education, then we had kind of like 1.5 with charter schools, and now I feel we're going to have yet another parallel system. And instead of perhaps pecking like a duck at public education that certainly has its challenges and certainly has opportunities for growth and to be better, I often wonder what our public education system would look like if we just funded it instead of trying to reinvent the wheel in another area over and duplicating systems, which does not seem efficient to me, or conservative, quite frankly, for that matter. So that's my little ditty on that. I look forward to the update because I do believe it's my understanding that the Senate will take SB2 to the floor on Wednesday, is my understanding, for at least first read. So we shall see how our representatives represent us in that. So on that cheery note, we will move on to the Chief of Staff, Dr. Miller, for the 2024-2025 calendar adjustment.
I do want to say thank you to Dr. Miller for thinking through how we can handle the bad weather days. So I very much appreciate the problem-solving approach here.
Yes, just to make it clear for everyone, this discussion item is for this current year's calendar and how we plan to address the snow days that we took in January. So we already have in this year's calendar a bad weather day built in on April 21st. So that would now become just a regular school day. Students and staff would report. Then this calendar also has 420 additional minutes built in. So we are short 15 minutes. So next Friday, February 14th, is already a professional learning day for staff, and there's already an approved waiver. And so we are going to adjust that learning day by 15 minutes. Therefore, we make up the shortfall in minutes, and we have enough additional minutes for our second bad weather day. So we would use April 21st for one bad weather day, and then we have enough additional minutes to make up the other bad weather day, and then we would be clear on both of those. And then, in order for us to submit, if there's not going to be any more snow this year, I've been told, even though the whatever guy popped up, groundhog popped up and said there was, but we can't submit any other waivers. So like today's closure of water, we can't submit any waivers until we've done 2 days, but that additional minute days count. So we have 2 done that now, if there were to be something else, we could try to apply for a waiver. That's it.
Ms. Taylor.
Dr. Miller, I had a question regarding, and maybe it's different because it was part of the district. What happens today for the part of the district that was closed? Do they have to make up those days?
Ultimately, we will need to take a look. We weren't for sure, obviously, how long this was going to last, and we'll need to see what we'll need to apply for from TEA in order about what we missed today, and then determining what TEA does will determine if we have to take a different course of action. But if TEA approves, then we'll be okay. But we'll just have to see. So,
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. So just to clarify, staff reports on February 14th. Only staff.
Yes, this Valentine's Day, February 14th, is a staff day. Students do not come to school on that Friday.
So we're only using the professional learning
Correct.
time. We do not have to make up instructional time with
Right,
students in the
because,
building.
you know, the state recognizes professional learning can also count for instructional minutes.
Love that.
So, yeah,
So no students
correct.
need
Thank
to
you.
report on February 14th.
Correct.
All students and staff report on the bad weather day on April 21st.
Yes.
And in my regular message to the community that comes out the week of the board meeting, so my February 10th week message, will communicate out about how we're making up the bad weather days. And then we'll have to address in there, and for all the boil water notice campuses, we'll be back in touch. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Next up, the Student Services Report, Mr. Kaj. The Student Services Audit Update.
President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, Board. Student Services Update. This is spinning off of a couple of years ago, the Gibson audit, the third-party auditor that came in to look at our processes and the things we have in place. And so this is I guess 2 years removed from that we're going to share information with you. So we have Leslie Davenport here to talk us through some discipline. Then we have Karen Shearer who will talk about the transfers. We have Jennifer Boniel that will talk about truancy and attendance and also discipline. And then Alexis Miller, restorative practices. So this audit and the things that you'll hear today kind of dances around goal number 2, student experiences. There's some other things that we touch in the counselors also in student experiences, but really those 4 items that we'll talk about today land clearly in goal 2. A review from last year. When we presented, we talked about takeaways when we finished last year's presentation. Behavioral management on campuses was up front, and we need to do a better job of guiding and helping those campuses develop those campus management plans, and I believe we've done that. Utilizing the district leadership team, that's a group that we formed several years ago. It's consistent, it's static, it's the same group of individuals working through these nuances on campus, and it is our touchstone to the campus with these discipline and behaviors. Continue to work with special education as we look at all our moving parts with the different programs and the different levels with discipline. And then, of course, working with the school chiefs and the student services team around student attendance and truancy. And then, of course, transfers is important as well, because when you hear about school choice, we have that in LISD, and we'll show you some information about that. So discipline and behavioral management will be up first. As a review, of course, Texas Education Code sets us all out on the right path, followed by the board policy, code of conduct then. Then we internally provide administrative guidelines, not just from student services, but school chiefs, the different departments give these guidelines to the administrative teams on campus to build these things. Campus behavioral management plans, we put a lot of effort into each campus having a robust management plan, not just relying on the code of conduct to address behaviors on campus. And then under that, we start getting into that restorative piece with the work of Alexis Miller with teaching expectations in the classroom, the programs and the curriculum, the supports, and then, of course, the disciplinary actions. So with that, I'm going to let Fort take us through the next few slides about the data.
Okay, so what we have here is the out of placements, and I'd like to address that this may be a same student with multiple out of placements. This isn't individual students. That'll be on our next slide. But this is whenever we have to remove a student from the learning setting. We try to do that as rare as possible, but it does happen, and we have to address it. Here you'll see that we had a peak for a JJ-AEP kind of in 22-23, and that aligns with THT became a mandatory placement at JJ. Then we have a jump to the next year where we became, and it was also e-cigs and vapes that sent us to JJ as well. So with DAEP, the next year we were able to not send everybody to JJ, and so our DAEP numbers jumped up and our JJ numbers went down due to that. We were placing them there, but we were also able to, with the District of Innovation, help put in some practices with the e-cigs and vapes that on their first offense they can attend ADAPT or HOPE, which is our drug rehabilitation or counseling program. So you'll see a little discrepancy in the numbers there with JJ and DAEP. But continuing with OSS and ISS, it's always our goal to not remove students from the learning setting as much as possible, and you'll see there is a steady decrease here in last year's numbers, which is excellent. All right, the next one we have is it's broken out by students. So where the last one was every number of out of placement, this is per student. So it's also declined as well. But you see those discrepancies, same with JJ and DAEP. Right, and then our next one is everything, all the interventions that we try to utilize to not remove students from the learning setting. Sorry, it's smaller here, but we have the total actions in the blue box at the top, but also total students. So some students, we had 27 total actions to keep kids in the classroom, 27,000, but only really 8,500 students were the ones impacted. And then the next year, it was 27,000 total actions, and then under that, 9,000 students. So we would like to see these numbers higher than the out-of-placement numbers. That means we're keeping them in class and we're trying to teach learning opportunities through behavior. So here you'll notice there is a little bit of a difference down in other. For the far right, it jumps up from 296 to 1,100. Well, that's going to be where we included the ADAPT HOPE referrals from the e-cigs or the vapes and the DOI placements. So that's where that number jumps up high. But those are opportunities that kids can serve outside of the campus time to be able to stay in the classroom and get services. So I would say that we are trending in the direction we would like in keeping kids in the classroom as much as possible.
I would like to draw just attention to one more graph on here is that restorative number that jumped up, and I think that's showing the continued effort year after year from Alexis and her group of administrators that are putting things into place, not just 1 year, check the box, move on to do something else. It's just a continuous effort, and you can see the numbers there of restorative is on a tremendous increase.
Yeah, it increased about almost 3,000 actions, which is wonderful. And basically, we definitely want to take every opportunity we can to teach kids through their behaviors or any kind of misguided action is a type of learning experience. And we want to empower our teachers to teach through that, learn through that, and help see why the behavior is occurring. So we partner with many other groups to help that as well. And those kind of go along with our consult and guidelines with working with campuses. And then looking ahead, kind of about that district discipline leadership team that Mr. Kaj was talking about earlier. So last year, they put forth that this year some of our goals would be to have the safe and civil training through special education, and that is well underway with hundreds of people being trained. It's going very well. The district level review and revision of discipline offense codes. We did tighten up some of those offense codes that are, some are local and some are reportable. However, that's to help campuses and us pull better streamlined data, and it has helped a lot. One of the actions that we did put into that has been helpful for campuses is a code of push-in support. So even whether that addresses special ed students or students on the MTSS process, we're able to document that, yes, they weren't pulled out of campus. We pushed in the support behaviorally with them as well, whether that's administrative, counseling, or other options. Also, we have review current district policies and procedures with the use of personal technology. So the cell phone usage in middle school and elementary is not occurring. So far, we have heard great responses to it, and we are not getting massive discipline number upticks from it. So I'm not hearing negative things from it at all, and I do know there's some talks to look at it at different levels and review that, but as of, unless y'all have heard different, it seems to be very positive for us. Also, for this upcoming year, we've been talking about what next year's goals would look like for the discipline leadership team. They want to focus, too, on really teaching new teachers best practices, kind of coming in and help giving that good classroom management guides and coaches or coaching type classes. We're working with that, trying to look at stuff like that. Safe and Civil would align with that as well. Also, campuses that are inheriting other campuses, how will they merge those behavior management plans and be a cohesive best practice campus? So we want to support that with the students and the staff. And then also, we really want to look at those bridging the gap meetings from DAEP and the transitions back to campus. They are required, but we want to make sure we're making use of everyone's time in the most meaningful transition back. So we're looking to really work and improve that process again and help with y'all's initiatives as that. So, any questions?
Next, we'll have Alexis take us through the restorative part of her work. Once again, she works with campuses. It'll look differently per campus, and she'll talk us through all of those different options.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kosh, Madam President, members of the board, district leadership, Dr. Rapp. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you once again about how utilizing restorative practices on our campuses ultimately impacts our overarching student experience goal. And so we know that students must feel connected to a classroom space, and we use restorative practices as one of the strategies to build and maintain a positive learning environment through intentional relationship building. And what you see on the screen now is the One Vision framework, and right at the center of that is the positive learning environment. And it's divided into 3 different components. One would be relationships and belonging, common values and guidelines, and also expectations. So restorative practices are mentioned within each of those 3 components that form a positive learning environment. And so it's very tiny here, and I apologize for that. But there are a snapshot of restorative practices in each of those components. For example, the treatment agreement is a fabulous way to establish common values and guidelines. It's a way to establish and maintain accountability through reinforcing expectations in the classroom by emphasizing that we are building a community, and this is what we have agreed to treat one another. And then last but not least, restorative practices is a great way to build relationships and foster a positive learning environment within the classroom. So where does this show up in our long-range goal? So as you all know, we have an overarching student experience long-range goal, but I stand corrected, or I sit corrected tonight. The performance objective is to support the mental health and behavioral needs and well-being of students, and there are 2 strategies that kind of pertain to the work that I enjoy doing, and one of those strategies is build community through restorative practices and other proactive behavior management strategies. And the other strategy is to provide initial and refresher training on restorative practices to support campus implementation. So we've been on this journey for about 7 years, and we've reached a point to where now campuses are participating in refresher training. So the bar on the right, and of course that probably should have a title on it, but last year 14% of the campuses were able to complete a refresher training, and that was really meeting the needs of what that school leadership needed at that time. When I was hired for this role, I appreciated the opportunity to connect with each of those school leaders and ask them specifically what they needed. For example, one campus may have wanted a session on how effective communication can be one way to leverage restorative practices, whereas another campus wanted to focus on really creating scenarios and walking through application of restorative practices by looking at different scenarios. And then school year 24-25, as of date, we are at 27% of our campuses have completed a refresher training. And I put that little asterisk right there because our goal is 28%. So we have one more campus that will be participating in a refresher training, and that'll be on February 14th. So selecting the campuses where I'm most mobile isn't just one person's decision. I appreciate the cross-departmental collaboration between professional learning and our chief's office. Try to gather as much data as possible, especially since this year many of our campuses were going through safe and civil training. It was very important to not overwhelm our campuses. And so there are just a few factors that are taken into consideration as you see on the screen there. So approximately school year 23-24, when you think about last time where I presented to you, this number was 92%, and I'm happy to present that for school year 23-24, all of those who are required to take the initial training on Canvas, 100% of those have completed that. Very happy to report that. I think qualitative data is important to note as well, and so I just pulled some quotes for you all that were from surveys, just asking our staff, like, hey, how do you see this training being useful to you? Specifically, how will you use restorative practices in your classroom to promote a positive learning environment? And those are just some quotes for you. I'll just read two of them. A teacher responded, I will use them all year from the beginning of the year to set the tone to the last day of the school year to ensure students' needs are being met. That's important because we know it just can't be a one and done. And then another, I will use it to build a safe climate where we're open to share and take risk. And I thought that was very powerful as well. Just some quantitative data for you from our from campus scorecards. Those were the campuses where I was most mobile last school year. And so this school year, I have a whole different set of campuses. And I'm pleased to share this data with you. And so what you see on the screen is the student survey data from asking the students in grades 4 through 12, how positive or negative is the environment of your school? And all of the campuses met their goal except for one, but I really want to highlight that campus for this reason. As of date, the number of offenses or referrals that are on that campus have decreased drastically. I spoke with that chief, and she's very proud of the improvements that they are taking on that campus, and I am as well. And then the treatment agreement question, this is given to students this will be students in grades 4 through 8. And the survey question is, my classes have a treatment agreement. And very proud of those numbers as well. And this is based on the student survey from 23-24. And then looking ahead, growing, right? And so looking forward to coming up with or contributing to goals and strategies that relates to the One Vision framework. Also coming up with or advancing the strategies that help to advance the long-range plan, creating resources and coaching tools and materials about restorative practices. Some snapshot is there for you. I have some learning materials that I've shared with staff on how to do things, like quick one-pager tips, and then some professional learning opportunities. One of the ones that I'm most proud of is TEA has released some learning on family engagement and how it relates to restorative practices. And we've just I reached out to our counseling and social work department, and they were more than happy to partner with me. And so I've joined on with their Love and Logic series. We had over 200 participants online for the first one. And the second one, I facilitated a session at Independence Elementary. So I really want to give a shout out to that administration that allowed me to partner with them on that night. So I look forward to coming back to you all again in a year to share with everything that we're working on. So thank you.
Next we're going to talk about is attendance and truancy. If you remember, this is our 4th year. So 4 years ago, we entered into the Rowley software idea to where campuses actually had a dashboard in which they could see their day-to-day operations. It takes them through the tasks of the truancy, a number of absences, when to file, paperwork, communication, and so we're not leaving it to chance anymore. It's very systematic across the district. Each year, campuses have significantly increased their attendance interventions and truancy filings, and that is evident. I will mention, I know Ms. Bonyol might mention this, but we greatly appreciate our partnership with the court system moving forward to help with our families and our students to become better attended in school. So directors of student services, we've split it between Jennifer Bonio and Leslie Davenport so that they can target those issues more specifically and work with those campuses a little bit better. Once again, fostering that partnership with the courts, liaison between the campuses and the courts, and the customer support to those campuses, both administration and those attendants. With that, I want to turn it over to Jennifer Bonio.
Well, good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Rapp. First of all, I want to say thank you for being on this attendance journey with Rawi, because I feel like it's just a continuous conversation, and I appreciate the continued use to utilize this software. A couple of things that we did change this year. So thankful that partnering with Leslie this year to be dedicated to the truancy and attendance and chronic absenteeism for our district. We continually provide support and training to all of our staff members. One thing that we did add this year in the courts is that we've always been a liaison between the campuses, but now we are involved in creating these attendance contracts in court with the judges that are individualized to the parents and also to the students to try to help improve the needs of the parents or whatever resources that they need to hopefully improve attendance. Also, a number of the students and parents have appeared in court this year. They have met the requirements from the courts that satisfy them for their attendance contract and also the LISD attendance expectations. Currently, our long-range plans goals for this school year is 3.7% for truancy, and then our attendance rate at 95.3%. We started this journey with Rawi 4 years ago. We see the data up there, how it is trending. We always know there's room for improvement. We continually collaborate with our attendance clerks, our district level admin, our campus admin to prioritize our resources to meet our attendance needs. Also, you see the difference of a little bit of an uptick in our truant percent last year. When we went and looked at the data this summer, we noticed it was our pre-K, kinder, and our 12th grade students. So I've collaborated, I know Leslie has, with the elementary campuses. I have with the secondary, especially to target our high school students. We have had a number of our high school students appear in court this year. Some of them were off track to graduate. Some of them were behind. But since appearing in court and the collaboration with their counselors, that they are back on track to graduate. So that has been a target area for us this year also. I know addressing truancy effectively, it takes proactive measures. It takes a strong partnership with the courts. Hopefully, combining these and the continued collaboration on many different levels, we can continue to build on our framework that we have to decrease truancy, to increase our attendance rate, and to continue building those relationships that we have.
So next up is going to talk about transfers. So somebody's got the clicker over there, so you got it. Go from there. So Karen's going to take us through the transfer slides. Just a quick reminder. Go ahead and click it. Out of path enrollment. So we have school of choice. We have the general transfers. Must meet board policy and criteria to qualify. You have program of choice. We have STEM campuses that students can transfer to. The Collegiate Academy, world languages, must apply and meet those criteria. But then we also have program placement transfers through the special ed department, art placement, language services, pre-K. And so with all of that, Karen Shearer is going to take us through the data.
Good evening, Madam President and school board members and Dr. Rapp. Just here where we have as a count for the 24-25 school year, when in our process for the request, started in the fall of 2023, where we have windows in the spring of 2023 for general transfers. But then also we have transfers throughout the year. Anybody that enrolls as a new enrollment can request a transfer. So the transfer process has some big windows of stuff, but it also never stops. And then, of course, we're adding in people that are requesting a general transfer and also including all those special programs like STEM and the Collegiate Academy. So at this point for the 24-25 school year, we've processed about 3,711 transfers. Of those, 2,600 out of the 3,700 number, 1,480 were out of district request, and out of those out of district, the 1,243 were approved. And something to also remind you on, when a student is a resident of LISD and they ask for a transfer from one school to another and it's approved, they are on that transfer and basically for life through their feeder. So they will go to the elementary school, middle school, high school based on that, unless the parent requests to return back to their zone campus. But under state law and board policy for students that are out of district, like my daughter, we apply every year for that. So that's why that number is in that 1,243. Doesn't mean it's new. Those children have been, like also Mr. Kosh's children have been here for a long time, year after year, from elementary through high school. So that is not just new enrollment at that point. And then we just wanted to add in, because special ed is an area where we are very full in the district and lots of students, and out of that, for the out-of-district request, there's 247. In that, though, we do have a estimated figure of what out-of-district transfers do bring us, about $6 million in enrollment.
So to summarize, once again, we're going to have some takeaways. We're going to continue to work with that discipline leadership team throughout the course of this spring, to where we'll be working on those goals, setting the campuses up for success as they get into their summer learning, their summer planning as we get ready to roll out the next school year. Continuing to work on our attendance and our truancy with the campuses. And then once again, working and processing those transfers to help with those in declining enrollment. All of this, to be said, is that the customer support of the Welcome Center, of parents and families and kids, but also giving that confidence and that support to those administrators that deal with this on a day-to-day basis. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions.
And I do want to say thank you to the audit committee that we met with this evening about the presentation. I appreciate when Ms. Prosnick and I met for the agenda review, she thought it would be a good idea that when we have these audit presentations that we have a chance to meet with the audit committee. So I appreciate them for gathering tonight as well about that. Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I've got a few notes, so pardon. I'll try to go backwards, actually, I think, in some cases. But because I was just looking up what our TAPER report says our special education numbers were for 23-24, and it's at 19%. And then our transfers are 20% out of district. So that's just interesting to me that already we have a fairly high percentage of special education students in Lewisville ISD, and we're seeing that even higher with our out-of-district transfers. So we are a district of choice, essentially, for special education students. Take that for what it's worth. There's a lot of nuance that goes along with that, but it's just something, as we just got legislative updates about what the crunch is going to be, those are students that require additional funding to support their needs. And regardless of the choices that parents have, there are a significant number of those students that are choosing us to serve that need. So that was just an interesting note. Treatment agreements. So Ms. Alcatib and I had the chance to tour Flower Mound 9 this past week. We were there on Tuesday, and it's early in the semester for most of our high school classes, right? So they were Miss Greenlaw at Flower Mound 9. She grabbed us from the hallway and said, I knew you were here, and I told my students they will not present until you come into our class because I want you to see. They did an entire project on their treatment agreement, incorporating, this is English, so they were incorporating symbolism, they were incorporating how it represents each of the students within their classroom and how it represents their values, all of this. All of that to say, number one, Ms. Greenlaw is amazing. Number two, that's the kind of project that we need to capture and replicate in some of our other classrooms. And I think that that's something that Ms. Greenlaw just does naturally, but it can be a skill that we can replicate across some of these other campuses. And that brings me to one of my other notes, which is I think it would be really interesting to see the number of placements for the specific campuses that have received training recently. Are we seeing a shift because of the training, or are we seeing a shift because of student or teachers like Ms. Greenlaw who may just naturally do this? I want to know what is the shift in that placement look like for those campuses that have received that training? Because I think that'll give us a picture of like the direct impact of what that training is doing. And then my maybe last note. But for now, my last note, I do really appreciate putting, Ms. Davenport, the out of placements right with the other behavior interventions that are happening. And the reason why is this, Lori and I have talked about the idea of unintended consequences when you put these initiatives into place, right? And so my fear would be that if we saw a decrease on both, that we were starting to see some unintended consequences of not wanting to report because we're looking at that data. We don't want to have that happen in our schools, right? And so I appreciate you making note of that we're seeing an increase in these initiatives that happen within the classroom to counteract our reduction in out of classroom. So I just commend you for that, and I want to continue to see those next to each other because I think that tells the whole picture. So I appreciate that. I think that's all. Thank
you. Ms. Taylor.
Yes, I have a couple of notes. My first question was, and I guess refresh my memory because I kind of remember and I don't, about did we have to do a plan, submit a plan related to the disproportionality?
That was through the special education side of the business where we were partnering with them and we're still working with them, but the shouldering of that effort is coming from that department.
Okay, got it. And then my other question was around, do we have our disciplinary actions by ethnic cohort?
We can get that information and we'll share it with y'all.
Okay, because I'm interested to know if there's any disproportionality of discipline related across the cohorts. My next question is around restorative practices. How often does refresher training happen?
So ideally, I try to fit in as many campuses during the August PL. Because of back-to-back trainings, we have one campus left that will take place on February 14th. But typically, there's one refresher training, and then I travel back to that campus where I'm most mobile. And I offer the school leaders, and honestly, Dr. Barker, that's what makes the difference, the school leaders and their leadership in between visits, right? And I'm happy that you shared that about Ms. Greenlaw. She's amazing. But I offer the school leaders three things. So a parking lot where teachers are able to conference with me one-on-one, walk and talk, so I'm able to actually walk with the principal because they're so busy, you get a window of time. And then the last one is just a critical self-reflection. So how are you doing with accomplishing your goal? Is there anything that I can do to support you? So it's given the idea that you can't just do the training and leave them be. Mm-hmm. And so having that communication throughout the school year is very important.
Mention mobility. Were you saying where you were most mobile or where the kids? Because I noticed that the campuses were they reflected one feeder pattern, and I guess the colony was represented with one of the schools, but you mentioned that the list going forward would be different. I guess just trying to understand.
Yes, thank you for asking that, and I'll be happy to clarify. I meant where I'm most mobile. Okay, gotcha. But there are different factors that go into creating that list. Okay. It really shouldn't just reflect one feeder pattern, but you have a cohort of schools that are participating in safe and civil training, and to not overwhelm them, we had to look at different factors. But so far, being able to have cross-departmental conversations with other district leaders on what campuses would be best fit for me to work with over the course of the year has been very helpful.
I will say she's a powerful department of one, and we have Rapp on the road, but we also have Miller on the move.
On the move. I
And
like
so
it.
she's
I
constantly mobile.
I like it. Living the high life. Miller, no, okay. My next question relates to the transfers. Looking at the percentages, 72% of, I guess, in-district transfers were approved, which means about 30% were not approved. And then when I look at the out-of-district, 83% of those were approved, 17% not approved. What are some of the reasons, I guess, for the denials and the differences between those two cohorts of students?
Yeah, so the criteria is the same, whether you're in district or out of district. So you're looking at the attendance over a 2-year period. You're looking at discipline referrals over a 2-year period, and then you're looking at, grades. Students that meet all those criteria, that's an easy process. You're approved as long as the campus that you're selecting has space, both with staff and both with the real estate in the building. But if they are denied for certain reasons, there's an appeal process so that the parents can fill out the appeal paperwork, tell us their story, their narratives, why we need to reconsider this. And then that lands on my desk, and then I hold a conversation with the principals, maybe with the parents if I need some more clarifications. And sometimes, based on the information they provide us and assurances moving forward, then it's approved. But whether it's in district or out of district, the same criteria are applied.
Okay. Do you receive I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say too, Ms. Taylor, one other point about that, since the in-district transfers don't have to apply every year, so you don't, whereas the out-of-district transfers do, that impacts that pool of people, and so that's going to impact your percentage a little, reflecting there too, because really we have about 7,000 students on an in-district transfer, so the in-district transfers far outnumber the number of students on an out-of-district transfer.
And also just on that number that's in accounting that would come in sometimes for the in-district side is that a lot more get canceled because people process it thinking they need another one, but they don't because they're confused with the different rules. So the number looks a little bit different in there because it didn't get denied. It just got canceled versus the overall approval.
Okay. And then brought up something that maybe ask another question related to you had mentioned certain criteria related to maybe referrals or whatever. Do you get that information for out-of-district transfers? Are they required to provide that information?
Many times a parent from out of district will, hey, we want to transfer in, and then my office, the administrative side of it says, okay, you need to provide us with these things. Okay. And sometimes they're very quick and provide us all the things that we need, and then sometimes the discipline is not part of it. And we'll reach out to them. Hey, we can't process this. We can't move it forward. We're missing your attendance. We're missing your discipline.
Okay.
And so we give them opportunities to provide it once we get it. And sometimes we get it and it's not, we can't maybe decipher it. This team right here will pick up the phone. We'll call the administrator from the campus outside of the district just to get a better understanding.
All right, thank you, and thanks for providing all of the data.
Ms. Sells?
Yes, and I hope I'm going to ask this again in the same way, because you told me to wait till here. Could we have the data on the out-of-placement actions by level, elementary, middle school, and high school, and by feeder? And then also in that 8043 of total out-of-placement actions that occurred by 3936 students. Could we get just a breakdown of like that incidence? Are we looking at mostly 2 incidents per student, or are we looking at, is there a disproportion there? Are we seeing a higher level and kind of that breakdown of just deciphering this data and seeing where are these students that are having that majority versus those that are maybe only having one or whatever?
Yeah, we'll take all all that information here at the high level numbers that we
Yes,
shared,
yeah.
and try to dive in a little bit deeper and at some different levels
Yes.
for both what Ms. Taylor asked about and then what you asked about. So you might need to give us a couple of hours to dig through that data.
Just whenever.
And then
Yeah.
we'll get it processed and portioned out visually so that you can kind of see it and then share it.
Okay. And then just side note, we're closing 5 schools. Some of the transfers into them. To make sure that as we're moving forward, that we're really prepared in our communications with those parents and with our community, and that things may look a little bit different in LISD, at least at certain levels from now on. And so I think we need to be really forward thinking about that and letting our community know that things may be a little bit tighter as far as approval goes because of the availability of a place for students. So that's just more of a comment than.
Dr. Bonner.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. Mr. Kosh, did I understand you to say we have a district discipline management plan in place? Is that right?
Each campus has, so we have a discipline matrix. That's that kind of administrative guidelines that we provide. But each campus then gets it a little bit more prescriptive to their campus, their campus management plan.
And they counsel with you all on that and in the creation of those to make sure there's fidelity, across the feeder pattern district at the campus level, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and so we really try to make a lot of progress during the summer learning with administrators.
Right.
We've been provided time to talk with each campus at our administrative trainings about the campus management plans and how important they are for their staff. What that campus management plan does is it removes the question marks.
100%. And the board's building a pretty good discipline report tonight because I'd like to see SES included on that. So we've got ethnicity, SES, and feeder patterns. So we've just got a great report we're having you build. And I appreciate that. Looking at discipline data for a long time over the course of the years, it's sort of like minority hiring. It's a race. It's not a race. It's a marathon, and we want to continue to go upward to the right in that regard. But in this instance, we want to go downward to the right. All right, as far as instances of discipline, I do want to make sure that our principals understand that this is a critical issue to this board, and that we want to make sure that campuses are firm and fair with students. But we also want to make sure that they are addressing discipline in a comprehensive manner at all our campuses. And so I'll leave it at that, but I hope they're listening, and I hope that that's the message they hear from you all. I know it is, because delaying that or not addressing that just builds a problem ongoing. So I appreciate that. And I'll close with attendance. You all know I love you for attendance and working with Rawi. I think you've got it to such a high level, it's going to be difficult to see any more gains because you're so close to 100. But I know you guys will keep after it. So thank you for your work on that.
Ms. Alcatab.
Being part of the committee, we were able to kind of talk through some of these questions, which Catherine kind of took the question that I was talking about, where we talked about the breakdown of those out-of-placement actions and looking at it with the feeder pattern and the grade levels. But I would also maybe like to see it kind of piggybacked with the restorative practices and which campuses you've gone back into and done those reviews or reteaches with, just to kind of see, are we seeing any trends with that and how is that working? And then the other thing I just wanted to say is the restorative practice, kudos to you and your team, Alexis, with the increase that we are seeing in those numbers. I think that is huge by looking at the data. And even the one campus that didn't meet, they still had a huge increase. And I think that's kudos to your team, especially, which is you. But, but working with those administrators and going back to those campuses and kind of creating that wraparound process that you're doing. You're not just giving them the training and walking away and saying, okay, figure it out. You're actually working together to make sure that they're understanding, doing the walk and talks, doing the parking lots. Those are key things that those principals and administrators are going to take back to their staff. Like she was mentioning with Ms. Greenlaw, those kids didn't even understand that they were really doing that. They probably did because I think it was a GT or an AP class. But something like that, the kids, when they're doing that survey, we kind of talked in our committee, is one of the campuses probably didn't even understand that that's what they're actually doing on their campus. And so it's just a way of making sure that they understand. And so kudos to you. kudos to our attendance and truancy and everything that you guys are doing. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Sells?
That just triggered something. I had written something over here because I'm a lunch with a leader at Rockbrook, my first year there. And so I'm on that campus and I see what's happening on that campus. And I wanted to say I started as lunch with a leader back in 2014. And back then, if your mentee had not abided by campus rules, they didn't get to come to lunch with a leader. You just had to sit there without your mentee. But let me tell you what I witnessed, and let me tell you why it's so important. Because for a child to know that someone took time out of their day to come and sit one-on-one with them and to have a conversation, show that we care, is huge. This past Monday, not mine, but one of my lunch with leader teammates' child was under discipline on campus. But they went and got her, and she was allowed to be a part of this, and then went back into discipline. And that was huge, because there was a conversation that I know happened during that time that impacted that child because somebody else cared. Somebody else still showed up, even though they weren't perfect. None of us are. Because I'm still going to be here for you regardless. So, very different from what it used to be. And I think that part of this is all of that training that you're doing and how we're seeing how can we be restorative, but also it's about the child. And so I just wanted to share that, just that little tidbit. I know that they've made great strides, and I know they're going to hit it out of the park when it comes to it, because being on that campus is a blessing. But I just wanted to share that little tidbit. I thought, well, she's not going to get to come. That was my perception, because that's what I knew before. Got to come. I just was. So, thank you.
Well, I was privileged to be on the audit committee when we originally did this audit, and we've come a long way. So I want to first acknowledge that we've come a long way. I would also like to say that I would be very interested in the number of students who are repeat behavior and discipline issues, because that's where the real opportunities exist, not just in the 1 year at a step at a glance. That tells me more about is what we're doing really having impact beyond the one time that we have. And I appreciate that we see discipline as an opportunity, and an opportunity for conversation, an opportunity to help and encourage students to make better choices going forward. Last year, Alexis, you gave us a pulse survey that you had done, and that was not included this time around. Did you do that pulse survey again or no?
So that question was not included in the teacher pulse survey.
Okay. I found that data last year to be very informative for me personally, because I'll be very blunt, it showed that over 30% of those who participated didn't think that restorative practice had any impact. Now, most of that was at the middle and high school level, where children are ever so receptive. But I do think that that is a data point in a place where we could absolutely have some growth, and maybe connecting the dots for teachers and for students in those instances. Last year, in the presentation, we were 1.9% truant students, and so by the end of the year, we had jumped 2.5%. Is that because spring is where we see the most truancy?
Yes, that is accurate. So in order for a student to be considered truant, they have to have 10 unexcused absences. So as the year goes on, that's usually where we see the number increase. But we did have an increase in our, like I mentioned before, our high school and our pre-K and kinder, that when we looked at the data this summer, we met with our chiefs to try to provide extra interventions within on the campuses to address that.
So are we looking, when you look at your numbers now, do we think that we're going to see that 2.5% again this year, or are we hoping, I mean, I know that there'll be an increase. It'd be great if there wasn't. It'd be wonderful. But I visited Fantasyland. I don't live there. I'm curious if the data that you're seeing right now shows you what that trend could look like. Because right now, you know how many students are at 7 or 8 or, you know, if you will, on that path.
So, great question, because I look at that often. Right now, we are below that path, but I know currently in regards to flu season right now, I can't predict what's going to occur. But right now, at this moment, we're below, but that doesn't predict exactly what's going to occur at the end. But we keep track of that data, and we communicate that with our chiefs monthly, and also I speak to campus principals often regarding that.
I will say prior to Rowie and the work that they had, it was we're hoping, and then we wait and see. Now that we know and we can see and they can communicate with the campuses are aware of this potential jump. Or, hey, we have to be on our seniors. They have to still continue to come, even though they've already got all their credits and all those things that factor into it. So it allows us to have different conversations with the administration than in the past.
No, I can't speak highly enough about the Rowie software and how well you can buy the software, but you all are the ones who have implemented it and implemented it effectively. So kudos to you for that. And once again, I want to give a shout out to Judge Curbo and his court, Dr. Bonner, and all of you basically gave a great presentation at Tassatasby on that. And I think the other districts found that quite effective. I know I was approached afterwards as if I knew anything, which I did not. My last thing I'm going to say is this. Last year I asked for 5 years of data because we have the data. It may not have corresponded when when the audit took place, but 5 years shows a trend. And I would prefer 5 years of data because that is what shows you the trend that Dr. Bonner talked about. So you can see if we are heading in that slope or not. 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years. I asked for it last year. I would have preferred to have seen it this year. On that, I will say that I am greatly appreciative of the work. I know you are a small but mighty team. We have a team of one who is doing all the walk and talks. You're a team of 1.5. No offense, you get to be a team of 1.5. But I think that in the transfers, I mean, we're really getting into the transfers now. I think that it is incredible the work that you all do and the customer service that you all give, and I'm very appreciative of that because it means less emails to me. So on that note, thank you very much. Next up is the finance report. Mr. Ware. Looks like construction.
Randy will be coming up to provide an update on the 2023 and 2024 bond.
Okay. All right, good evening, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, and the board. So I'm back again to talk about the bond program. First off, the 2023 bond program. Again, I'll always mention the little bucket on there. When you're seeing me talk, it's usually going to be an INS fund issue. So everything you heard earlier about M&O funds, this is not that side. So I'm going to go through, I've got 3 GMPs tonight. I'll go through each one, and I'll kind of take a pause, and we'll go around. They're very similar. They're all for middle school 20-year life cycle maintenance repair projects. The very first one is Creek Valley Middle School. So for this project, VLK is the architect, and Jackson Construction is the construction manager at risk. This includes all typical items of a full 20-year life cycle maintenance repair project, including the new furniture and any items identified in the facility's assessment in need of replacement. This project will take 2 summers to complete. Right now, the plan from Jackson is to do ceiling and above work, as well as they're going to try to tackle the library and auxiliary gym this first summer. That way we have a little bit of flex space moving into next summer. The summer 2 would be everything below ceiling. So this project was advertised and bid out to subcontractors by Jackson Construction. Jackson has evaluated and scoped those bids and provided a guaranteed maximum price of $227,726. Good grief, which is within the overall project budget. Excuse me. A recommendation to approve this GMP will be brought back next Monday night and presented to the board for approval. And with that,
Are there any questions? My only question, and I know we don't, and Creek Valley became a STEM middle school, and I know that we had physical adjustments to our elementary schools. I know there are no typical adjustments to STEM middle schools, but are we doing any of that? Because you just mentioned the library. It's the only reason I ask.
Really not much. All the graphics were already done previously for that, so really not much extra in this one for STEM.
All right. Move on to number 2.
Okay. So our next one is for Downing Middle School, 20-year life cycle maintenance repair project. Very same thing, GMP. On this one, VLK is still the architect, but this one has Joris General Contractors as the CMAR. Again, includes all the typical items from the assessment, as well as from new furniture. This one is a two-summer project. Really, the goal here was just to do ceiling and above in general, summer 1, and ceiling and below in general, summer 2. Again, this project was advertised and bid out to subcontractors, and those bids were scoped and a GMP provided of $23,096,718, which is within the overall project budget. A recommendation for this one would be coming in front of the board next week as well.
Are there any questions? Ms. Lasan.
Thank you. Well, Randy, I think you know this was coming. I've talked to Dr. Rapp about this as well. So you guys, I just don't want you about to say it's not catching you off guard. Since Downing was one of our schools that we considered closing, but we ultimately decided to table everything middle school for now, I would like to put this project on hold, probably for at least a year, and then we'll see what the legislature does, what impact the closures of the 5 elementary schools have on our budget. So my personal feeling is I would not be voting for this on next week is right when it's up. Now, I did, Dr. Rapp provided a little more information to us about what exactly is in the, Dr. Rapp, via Mr. Fight, provided us some information about what is included. The one thing that stood out to me that felt like a safety issue was the fire alarm. And so if there's any other safety-related things like that, then, of course, I think we should do those. That's just Allison Lasan, not an architect opinion. But, so I'm just going to put that out there as comment.
Dr. Bonner.
Thank you, Ms. President. I agree with Ms. Lasan as far as Downing and any of the other middle schools that were identified on the list and have reservations about the safety issues. If there's fire alarm or anything like that, water suppression, fire suppression, that kind of thing, we should go ahead and do that until we make a decision. But outside that, I think we should hold on everything. Thank you.
Well, I concur with my 2 fellow board members as well. I think that we need a plan as a board before we move on spending bond funds on schools, on middle schools. I think that we need an opportunity as a board to do that, and so that you know what that plan is as well, and what it is, benchmarks or so forth that we're looking for from those schools that were identified. I agree on safety issues. that moving forward, we just need to be cognizant about not spending taxpayer dollars, spending precious taxpayer dollars, bond funds, that on a school that may or may not be around in 2 to 3 years. But I think we need a plan as a board before we do that. All right. With that, we will move on.
Okay, so the third one is for Durham Middle School, 20-year life cycle management repair. Again, VOK is the architect. Jackson Construction is the construction manager at risk on this one. Same thing, includes all the items from the facilities assessment document, all the typical items from a 20-year, including new furniture. This one, it would take 2 summers to complete. Just like the other Jackson project, they would like to handle ceiling and above the first summer, as well as the library and auxiliary gym, and then come back. Same thing, project was bid out to subcontractors. Those subcontractor bids were evaluated and scoped, and a GMP of $22,745,518 to the district, which is within our overall. A recommendation for this one would come before the board next week as well.
Questions? Comments? All right. Moving on.
Okay, so next steps, these 3 items that we talked about here tonight would come before the board spoke about. And then I've mentioned this a few times. This is our real busy time to bring you guys a lot of GMPs, and so you'll start to really see those the next couple of months. You can see a list here of about a dozen GMPs that we're planning on bringing. Those would flow from discussion items at the work session to then.
All right. Thank you so much. Next is to discuss the possible Hebron High School Fieldhouse scope.
I'm actually going to cover this one, but Randy's going to stay put as well, just for any questions. So, as we know, we've been talking about with the 2024 bond projects, we talked about the cost of the Hebron project that's in the 2024 bond. So, okay, I was like, I don't have that cost memorized. I was going to pull that back up. So as we look at what was approved in the 2024 bond, it includes $4.26 million for the 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair project for the 2002 field house. The project does not really include any other major renovations and would leave most of the spaces as they are currently configured. Well, when we take a look at the field houses across the school district, the existing high school field house at Hebron that was built in 2002, each high school received a new field house facility in 2010. And all of the schools used those facilities in 2010 for football field houses. Hebron High School at that time decided to use it for track, soccer, baseball, and softball. And so the existing 2002 field house that's used as the main football field house does vary from the other field houses across the district. So this is the building, the current Hebron High School floor plan of their field house, that 2002 building. And again, it is quite different from the other ones, and you can tell that from this picture here. So there's a 2010 Flower Mound High School football field house. And those spaces contain very different items that are not contained in the 2002 football field house. And so bringing before you, board, the request to be able to address this difference between these football field houses, which would basically be things like expanding the laundry storage area, creating the same type of training spaces, creating the same type of video spaces, creating the same type of spaces for assistant coaches and head coaches that those other 4 football field houses have. So there's the building that we're talking about, the 2002 building. And the other thing that we have talked about as we're looking at construction is, could we also address the pedestrian flow into this facility? You see that little offshoot building there to the side that was made for taking tickets, which no longer really is how we do things. And that little building does impede even the view of what's going on in that parking lot, and makes it a little bit challenging at this facility to see what's happening. And so there's the same view. There's that little building off to the side. And so what we're talking about doing is basically with this construction project, we're also bringing before you the request to be able to tear down that ticket building and widen the pedestrian area there, the walkway, traffic flow, add a little bit more parking spaces to that area as well. And so you can see in this changed image that little ticket building is gone. The main entrance is marked better with this construction. Interestingly enough, and I know we've talked a little bit about this history, that when the football field was originally established, it only had stands on what's now the visitor side of the configuration. And so really the main entrance to that stadium is where the visitor stands are, which is why that entrance area is so much wider. It had the ticket inside the main building, and that's not the way the configuration has stayed. We've built the home side stands, and a la we have the situation that we have now. So ultimately, our proposed recommendation for addressing these scope adjustments, addressing both the building to bring it in line with the other field houses, along with the ticket booth tear down and addressing that walkway, is utilizing $5.4 million from land sale proceeds. This construction would not start for a full year. So this proposed amount also, Randy's done the calculations on escalating a little bit for inflation. Basically, we would need to go one more football season with the configuration the way it is with the 2002 field house, and then construction would begin after that in collaboration with the other projects we have going on, because we've got band lot renovations and other things happening there as well. So our next steps would be to consider the approval of these recommendations. We would bring this scope and budget adjustment before you on Monday night for the consent agenda. And then in March, next steps would be bringing forward football scoreboard replacements, stadium lighting replacements, and a GMP discussion about the Hebron High School Stadium 20-year work. Randy, you have anything on that slide?
No, ma'am.
I did okay on that one. Okay, perfect. It didn't have a ton on it. And then that would impact the March consent agenda, as well as those items would carry forward over into the consent. And with that, we'll open it up for any questions about this scope and proposal adjustment.
Dr. Bonner.
So with this will bring all our field houses into the same sort of capacity, size, et cetera, so there's equity? Is that a fair statement?
Yes, yes.
I wanted to ask a yes or no question, so I did. So yes, okay, good. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. This might seem a little incongruous with recent actions by the board, right? But I think it's necessary to get that equal capacity for all our programs. So thank you.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. So first of all, I want to reiterate something that you said earlier. So this is not only a parity issue, which is really important, but there are also some safety concerns with the lack of sight lines of being able to see into the parking lot from that side, correct?
Yes, there are. And, you know, the Hebron footprint entirely in and of itself is just a challenging footprint in general. But yes, it does make it hard. You cannot see what is on the other side of that ticket booth, and administrators are definitely on the other side dealing with taking tickets and dealing with looking at trying to see all the traffic flow, but you can't tell what's going on the other side over there. So this will really help with that visibility.
Awesome. So that's another factor that we need to keep in mind, that this isn't just cosmetic or something along those lines, that it really solves multiple issues, including parity and safety. And then the other thing that I want to make sure of, that it got a small mention. So we are recommending, or you are recommending, using land sales. So this would, an increase in the scope of this would not impact M&O for this construction.
Yes, that's correct. And one of the things, Board, that I appreciate is that you all have been utilizing land sale funds over the last several years in order to really address some parity and equity issues that we have identified across the district, and safety issues, things like basketball goals that we don't have to move around and can drop down. And so I just appreciate that. And so this is another request of that nature, not on the M&O side, completely on the INS side. Yeah.
Ms. Taylor.
I just had a question, and then it feels like. How did my question just leave that quickly? I'll try to see if I remember it. I don't know what just happened.
Ms. Sells.
I just wanted to say that I was one that supported this being on the 2017 bond. I walked it. Not that it was part of my elementary schools that I was walking, but because I was in the area and I was curious. And then I felt like we had some safety issues and we had just some building issues. Live there, for sure, with the flooding that was happening. And I wouldn't want to shower there. I mean, it needed addressing then. And so, having said that, do I wish we had the option of not being in this predicament and using this land sale? Absolutely. But I do believe that the decisions that were made were based on the best information that they had at the time. And so I am happy to be part of this board that is looking at it finally and saying, this is what we need to do. So I am supporting this, even though I wish the land sales could be used in a different manner, because I feel like that this wasn't our issue. It was an issue from the past that we've kind of inherited. So, but just having said that, I'm glad and look forward to this moving.
Ms. Taylor.
Sorry about that. I had a question about I guess the proposed budget. It sounded like it had been, I don't want to say padded, but had been adjusted for inflation. What happens if a year from now the amount is larger? Would we have enough land sales? Would it then go to M&O? Thoughts, I guess, on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say never, but we would never intend to go M&O with that, right? So yeah, we are healthy on land sales. We're also healthy on bond project savings, and so there would be other funding sources at that time should we get into that situation.
I'm just grateful this is finally being addressed, bluntly. It should have been addressed, as Ms. Sell said, back in 2017. But I'm grateful that as we have looked across the district and over my time on this board, I know that we have tried very hard to bring parity to all of our campuses and all of our facilities and everything that we offer our students. And I am grateful to be a part of the board that will get this taken care of. So I appreciate the work. Next up is the Board of Trustees report.
I have one item.
Oh, you have one item? Oh, that's right, consent. I always try to skip over consent.
That's okay.
I won't lie.
I'll make it as quick as possible.
Yeah. We'll see how fast you can do it.
Okay.
I'll time you.
This is a preview of the consent agenda that we'll bring for your approval on the 10th. Tonight, I just wanted to highlight one of the items on the consent agenda. Public education is one of the most targeted industry areas for tax. The technology department has identified the need to reinforce recommended product and services, providing additional protection. This can also help reduce the cost of our cybersecurity insurance. Items that you'll see next week.
Riveting. Thank you very much. Very brief. No 20 seconds, but very good. Next up is the Board of Trustees report. Ms. Alcatep, do you have a report for the Legislative Committee or Advocacy Committee?
I do. Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. In the board, in your folder, each of you will see the article that we have put together that we would like to publish, highlighting our resolution that we have put and you guys have adopted as a board. And this is just kind of reiterating so that everyone understands what we're talking about and how it does impact us as a district when looking at it. And we wanted each of you to take a look at it, to read over it, because we are intending and hoping that we will be able to sign every single board member's name to this. And we will be sending this out to Cross Timbers Gazette and other social media and local media places, and then also posting on all of our social media. So please take a look at that, get it back to us as soon as possible. If you have any suggestions or comments, we would really appreciate that. Ms. Sells, did I miss anything? Perfect.
Ms. Lasan?
Yes, we, my committee of Ms. Prosnick and Ms. Alcatib have decided to move forward with nominating Dr. Lori Rapp as Superintendent of the Year through TASB. And so that's going to be on next week's agenda, right? Okay, so we have to do a resolution, to nominate her as the board. So we will be putting that on the agenda next week, and very looking forward to signing that and, getting it.
Very well deserved. For the Program and Budget Review Committee, we are meeting later this week with Dr. Rapp to continue our work to find ways to ensure that we are running as efficiently as possible. And as always, sadly now, because we cannot count on the legislature, to find other areas to reduce our budget, bluntly. Not a fun committee. So do any other committee chairs have any other reports? Ms. Taylor.
I just wanted to provide a quick report of the naming committee. Upon the closure of Posner STEM Academy, the naming committee, which also includes Doctors Barker and Bonner, received requests to incorporate the Posner name in renaming Hebron Valley Elementary in some way. The committee has decided to push the consideration of this item to the Legacy Committee as part of their task to incorporate the traditions and cultures of Posner into Hebron Valley. We're hopeful that they can come up with recommendation and rationale for any changes that our committee can then vet, possibly bring to the board.
All right. Thank you so much. Anything else? All right. Well, if there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is 7:46 p.m. Have a pleasant evening.